Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Evans, LLG's Chief Executive, and I'm joined this week by Dennis Hall, our Bulletin editor. Hi, Dennis.
Hello, Deborah.
Now, welcome back to everybody who's been on a summer break. Now, we're no stranger to working hard at LLG, and we have a packed programme of delivery all year. Some of you may have joined us for the planning conference last Friday, and this week it's the monitoring officer conference, which we're really looking forward to. However, too many hours in the workplace can be detrimental, can't they, Dennis? And indeed, absolutely, some demographics might be more disproportionately affected than others. So, Dennis, tell me about this.
Well, I've come back to this, Deborah, because several recent related articles have compelled me to look at this topic once again. Work stress is a real issue, and long working hours culture in the legal profession is a real and live matter for our members. Does work ever stop these days? Whatever happened to 9 till 5? Modern means of connectivity, you know what I mean, texts, emails, social media, they all bring work pressures into our lives, but at all times of the day. So today what we're going to look at are the effects of all of this, whether employers have the right to do this. Do they have the right to intrude, as some say, into our personal time and space? And whether the law, in fact, needs to change, Deborah.
Well, indeed, and I did see an article in this week's Gazette saying that regulators should in fact tackle this culture of long working hours. One of the thoughts that they have is that it actually hinders equality, diversity and inclusion in the legal profession. And this is according to research that the Legal Services Board have done recently. Now, the regulator commissioned the Social Change Agency to map any systemic barriers to equality, diversity and inclusion. And what emerged powerfully from the mapping exercise is that there are a number of factors that underpin the failure of EDI initiatives to make a significant impact. So what are these, I hear you say? Well, they've noted that there's been no shift in the systematic inequalities that are entrenched across the professions. And these factors do include a long hours culture. So Dennis, what do you know about this?
Well, this poses a specific challenge, I think, for the legal profession, given the financial pressures, other pressures that both organisations and professionals are under. However, without finding some way to mitigate this, disabled people and those with caring responsibilities or long-term health conditions will always remain at a disadvantage. Now, the report says that by making the culture and practice more equitable, it will improve working conditions for everybody, whilst also removing exclusion for marginalised groups. But what does the law say about work and time? Well, in the United Kingdom, the Working Time Regulations, 1998, set out protections that govern working hours, rest breaks, and holiday entitlements. And for instance, unless employees voluntarily opt out, they generally mustn't work more than an average of 48 hours a week. However, despite such protections supporting a work-life balance and protecting employee well-being, there's currently no legally enshrined, I'll repeat this. However, despite protections supporting a work-life balance and protecting employee well-being, there's currently no legally enshrined right to disconnect. At present, UK employment law doesn't specifically prevent employers from contacting their workforce outside their usual contractual hours. And now this varies from countries like France, Belgium and Ireland, where, as we've seen already in the articles on this, they've already established a right to switch off.
Well, it's a very interesting right indeed, Dennis, and it's about far more than just hitting that button on your laptop. It's been reported last week that the UK government is looking to actually enshrine this right to disconnect or switch off from work in law, and that it could penalise employers that contact workers outside an agreed set of hours. Now, this policy is going to come in as part of the new Employment Rights Bill, and it could result in employers who repeatedly breach the agreement being forced to pay thousands in compensation at tribunals. Now, Labour's proposed changes represent a significant shift in our domestic employment law, and the government's plan suggests creating a code of practice that's comparable to ACAS's disciplinary and grievance procedure code. Now, it's expected that this code will place a responsibility on employers to agree with its workforce when they can be contacted outside of their contractual hours, although breaching the code will unlikely give rise to new employment tribunal claims. It could influence decisions, it could influence the compensation awarded in other claims like unfair dismissal. So in French law, for example, the right to disconnect has already changed France for the better, and this could soon be law in the UK if Labour goes through with its plans. Now, the French law was introduced way back in 2017, and it applies to companies with more than 50 workers, and it obliges businesses to clearly define normal working hours and set out policies around work communications negotiated with employers, and allows workers to be unreachable or not reply when work is over. So Dennis, you will in fact be able to go to the beach and switch off. Now, in other European countries, including Belgium, Ireland and Italy, they're all following suit. So are we going to be next in line? Dennis?
Well, it looks like it from what I've read over the weekend, because these items have featured in the news over the weekend, as I mentioned earlier. Now, over the past few years, awareness has indeed grown of the perils of work creeping into personal time, especially for knowledge workers, whose jobs don't have to be done in an office or on an assembly line or factory. One French health insurance company, you mentioned the French example earlier, Deborah, well, one company even makes the case on its website that the right to disconnect is a public health issue. Meanwhile, according to reports, as we've reported here as well over the recent months, the numerous trial runs of 4-day working weeks result in employees experiencing reduced stress levels, less tiredness, and increased happiness even, and personal satisfaction, as well as increased productivity. You will recall the Cambridge local authority that found all these were the results of their 4-day week experiment. Deborah.
Well, great outcomes, Dennis, I have to say, and that's a really good objective of the legislation, because that's something that everybody would appreciate. Now, unfortunately, by my watch, we've run out of time, so I'm going to have to disconnect soon. But on that note, you can get coverage of this and many, many more items in the Bulletin and by listening to the Grapevine podcast. So it's goodbye from me.
Have I got to say and goodbye from me too?
You do, yes. Goodbye.